Over on e1racing.com, if you use the code GEEKDOM101, you get 20% off everything, including not just some of the best gaming chairs, but also some of the best gaming tables. And I happen to have one right here. And yes, there is some assembly required, and they sent this to me. I had to put it together, but you can do all kinds of stuff with this gaming table. You can wrap it up, it folds up. You can put systems on here. You can put a monitor, a computer on here. And along with it comes with the gaming chairs. Over on e1racing.com, use the code GEEKDOM101 and get 20% off. Try it out. You won't regret it. So I wanted to talk about the ramifications and the repercussions after the events of Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame. So naturally, if you haven't seen the film, we are going to have spoilers here, as well as we're going to talk a little bit about what's being teased for Marvel Phase 4, as well as what's going on with Spider-Man Far From Home. So again, you've been warned. I'm sure 99.9% of people watching this video probably saw the movie by now, or I would hope so. But anyway, so in the movie, we obviously have the Infinity War, the snap. We have the 5-year time skip after Thanos gets killed by the Avengers. And then they have the whole time thing where they go through the time heist and they fix everything at the end of Endgame. But the question is, what kind of repercussions did Endgame have beyond just the surface level stuff? Now, obviously, we know that half of the population of the universe disappeared, and at some point, they all came back. Now, obviously, when you're living in a world like this, it's going to make drastic changes. You know, it makes you wonder about things like the food supply on Earth, certain companies, like whether or not they had to obviously downsize because there weren't as many people on Earth. You know, and obviously folks were reproducing and whatnot. There's still babies being born, but, you know, the world was a very drastic place during those 5 years. And then all of a sudden, snap number 2, and they all come back. And what happens then? Do people who are dating other people, you know, because if they lost their loved one in the snap, then all of a sudden they come back. What if they have kids with somebody else, you know, and then the original mate comes back? There's that. But also, I'm wondering where they're going to go with Phase 4 when it comes to the future of the Infinity Stones. What I mean by that is this. If you watch Endgame, we know that the Ancient One explains to the Hulk that the Infinity Stones maintain the balance of time, and that if you take one of the stones away from a timeline, that it's going to end up creating a split timeline. I've covered this extensively in my timeline explain video for Avengers Endgame. But the big question now is, not with the 2012 Avengers timeline, even though that is obviously one that's up in the air when it comes to what happened with Loki and that stone, but more so the question is, what's going to happen with the present? And for those who don't know, in the Marvel Comics, what Thanos did when he snapped the second time and he destroyed the stones in 2018, 3 weeks after Avengers Infinity War, 3 weeks after that, and he destroyed the stones. You can't do that in the comics. The comic book version of the stones, the rules of the comic book version of the Infinity Stones are different than the ones in the film. They've been depowered, but they've also been overpowered when it comes to the snap. So you can't do that. But Thanos was able to do that in the future, or not the future, but in the regular timeline, 2018. And then he tells the Avengers that he almost died. That when he did that, the deed almost killed him, but he was able to barely survive. But the question is, what now? Because if the stones have been there since the beginning of time, and if the stones have been there to preserve, you know, the rules of the universe, reality, soul, power, mind, space, all these different things they represent, what's going to happen now in a world without the Infinity Stones? Does that lead to consequences? And what sort of consequences did the Avengers and Thanos, both of them, do to affect the space-time continuum? Now, if you look at what's going on with Spider-Man Far From Home, there's been a lot of talk that Mysterio in that movie could be, or he says he's from a different timeline, or from a different multiverse, from a different universe. And a lot of folks are saying that that's BS. A lot of folks have theorized that Jake Gyllenhaal, who plays Mysterio, is telling Peter Parker a load of crap. He's basically lying to him, and that he'll be revealed as the true villain of the franchise, which could very well be the case. But what if he's not? I wonder if the consequences of the snap may have somehow, and not just the snap, but also the destruction of the Infinity Stones that Thanos destroyed from the 2018 timeline, the main timeline. It makes me wonder, and I say 2019 because I'm used to saying it, but I meant to say 2018. It makes me wonder if when the snap happened, either the second snap, the one that Thanos did off-world in the garden or whatever when he destroyed the stones, if that wound up creating some kind of paradox or some kind of rift in the space-time continuum. Now, obviously, the theory is that because of the multiverse, they can introduce the X-Men, Fantastic Four, without giving them new origin stories. They don't really have to do that. And then also the gamma radiation that blasted out from the stones. Like, that could be the main key here as far as figuring out where they go from here. Now, what I'm trying to theorize here is, is this going to create a problem? Is it going to create portals? Is it going to create access gateways between the multiverses to come together and combine and possibly create, multiple Spider-Men, multiple Iron Man? I mean, we've seen this in Into the Spider-Verse. We've seen this in the comics as well. There's tons of alternate universes in the Marvel Comics, and actually the films count as a different alternate universe. So in the canon of Marvel Comics, even the movies themselves are canon, even though they're not canon to the Earth 616 timeline. So it's wacky like that. But I wonder if now we know, based on what Kevin Feige said, that Phase 4 is going to be very, very cosmic. We know that Adam Warlock's going to be involved. We know that we're going to see the Celestials at some point, the Eternals. There's a lot of stuff where they're going to be doing stuff off-world. Probably Captain Marvel 2 and Doctor Strange 2 are going to really focus on this. But I'm just wondering, is it going to end up being something to where the Infinity War events and the Endgame events are going to end up having disastrous results on the sanctity of the space-time continuum? Did they, were they able to trigger the awakening of the Beyonder, right? Like, that could be the case. Did the gamma radiation possibly, create mutations? Is that where we get the origin of the mutants? Are we going to see characters like, the Molecule Man, Owen Reese? If the gamma radiation was so powerful, what if that somehow affected somebody? What if that's what woke up Adam Warlock? I mean, there's so many possibilities here, and I want to definitely get some engagement in the comment section about this topic because I find it really interesting, in that, yeah, they managed to go back and save the world, the Avengers did in Endgame, but at what cost? What did they do? They lost Black Widow, they lost Iron Man. What did they do to the actual fabric of the universe? Because if the Ancient One is right, they need to have the stones. So will they create new stones? Will there be more stones created? Did Thanos lie and maybe the stones are somewhere else? There's so many possibilities here. Obviously, I feel like the MCU will try to retcon it and say that, well, the universe can exist without the stones. But truthfully speaking, is that what they're going to do? Or are they going to make it so where there actually is a major consequence? I don't know. Let me know in the comments what you think. I'm curious to get discussion going on this, and I might actually cover this again in the future because Far From Home is going to be very, very interesting film to see where they go with this, because not only will it be possibly the end of Spider-Man for quite some time in the MCU, hopefully not, but it could also end up being the beginning of something new and a revelation that could end up leading to what will be, of course, Phase 4 of the MCU. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you all down below.